All right, church. Well, we've been walking through what it means to be a people under God's authority as a kingdom of priests and a holy nation the last 3 weeks. Sam and I wanted to have a little discussion. He and I were just discussing a minute ago about what we commonly think of as the command to not lie, which is not explicitly to not lie, but is actually stated to not bear false witness against your neighbor. And we'll see all sorts of ways that God cares about justice and the carrying out of justice in the court system for the people as we read through. If we were to read through Exodus and Leviticus, we'd see also all sorts of case laws and situations in which God cares about justice. But we have often thought of this command as "Thou shalt not lie."
Yeah.
And we were just discussing a little bit of the differences in not bearing false witness against your neighbor and not lying. So you want to fill them in a little bit?
Yeah. Oftentimes, when it's boiled down to saying don't lie, what we think of is never say something that isn't true. And if you use that as the standard, you're using the standard that God doesn't actually use in the Ten Commandments. Number one, the telling factor for bearing false witness against a neighbor is the reputation of that neighbor. So when you're dealing with what it looks like for your neighbor to be equally dignified and made in the image of God, you'd be damaging his social status by then saying something that's not true about him, right?
So this would be actually closer to the New Testament word of a slanderer.
Yes, slanderer.
A slanderer that bears false witness or repeats gossip in a intentionally harmful way is
Yeah.
closer to the Ten Commandments and what they prohibit than just simply not telling the truth.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the difference. How you could be wrong and say something that is incorrect, and not be a person who's borne false witness against their neighbor, while you could also still do that and bear false witness against your neighbor. But the subsequent flow of thought, oftentimes, when it is reduced to do not lie or do not say an untruth, is do not deceive. And that raises another issue. Is deception inherently wrong? And is deception inherently always under the category of bearing false witness against your neighbor? Well, the fun one we've talked about a lot of the time is in sport. If you use that as the standard, which remind you, God does not. Anytime anyone has put a crossover on someone in basketball, they've told them they're going one way, while in their heart they've decided to go another way, and they've convinced that defender that they're going that way, when in fact they're going this way. Have they committed a sin, according to God, by successfully fooling their defender? Well, of course not. And that isn't the standard that God uses. That's kind of a fun one. But in a more complex situation, I think it's interesting to consider Rahab the prostitute, who helped the spies of Israel not be captured when they were spying on the land before they would try to engage in the conquest. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 31 says, "By faith Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies." So in what way was she friendly to them? She had faith in their God, and because of that, she did not tell the truth and give them over to the guards looking for them. And God said that was a profound act of faith. So simply giving information or being deceptive, per se, is not in violation of breaking the commandment. How then, Jason, would you say we square being deceptive with being people of the truth?
Yeah, I think that's a tough line, and there's some implications for that for our gospel witness. That as Christians, we should be known. People should not have to wonder if we're deceiving them.
Yeah.
And there's a fine line for that, while also recognizing that God wants us to be for His truth, but not every question that is asked has to be answered, I think, in a truthful way. To go to that question with Rahab, are the spies here? Well,
Yeah.
should she to go back to my classic ethics class at seminary? I
Yeah.
don't know if you got posed the exact same question,
Yeah.
but one of my ethics professors in seminary said to us, I don't think you should answer that question if the spies are here with a yes or a no, because I think God's going to always provide you with another
Yeah.
opportunity. Well, he may be correct. There's some guys in Christian ethics that would say that you should answer that yes and then leave the results to God if the spies are there. There's some guys in Christian ethics that would say you should answer that no, because you're not bearing false witness against your neighbor. In that case, you're actually bearing false witness for
your neighbor.
You are practicing love for your neighbor by not getting them killed. And then there's others that would say, hey, you shouldn't answer at all, or God's going to not make you put in a position like that. But I think history's shown a whole lot of positions that appear to be that way. So wrestling through some of those things is an ethical conundrum to some degree. But when we need to understand that we're not going against the Ten Commandments if we would be answering that question, no, the spies are not here. You may have other biblical texts you need to consider. You would definitely need to consider what it means to be a person known for truth, so that if you were to preach the gospel to that same person, they would be able to believe you. But you would not be, I think, in direct violation of the Ten Commandments to be bearing false witness for your neighbor as opposed to against your neighbor in that case.
Yeah, you'll see where this bumps up in other areas. You'll be like, well, if I use the word deceive, does that mean that I can deceive maybe like the government on how much income I've made this year by lying on my taxes? Well, no, because you're supposed to, according to Jesus' words, render unto Caesar. That would be a scenario where you have been deceiving and sinning at the same time. If I, for instance, was being very evasive or even giving false information to my wife for multiple weeks about what we're doing on her birthday, so I can give her a surprise party with multiple people ready to go, I'm not bearing false witness against her by giving her a false sense of things. It's easy to be like, okay, no one would think, yes, this is the intent of the Revelation passage that says all liars will have their part in the lake of fire. No, lies to falsely esteem yourself or to maliciously malign someone else with false information. That's the spirit of the command. And the spirit of God giving it to the Israelites then is again about representing accurately His character to the world. So being committed to the growth of His people, being committed to the truth of upholding His image in every person. That's the driving force behind the commandment to not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Yeah, and I think that's a good one for us to keep in mind in our culture. And it is very valuable to teach our children to not lie, to be people of truth who can be trusted. But it's not simply because it's a violation of the commandments. And as Sam said, we need to look at the character of God and the commands. In this one, it's very clear that He cares that people are protected from harm from false witnessing in the pursuit of truth and justice. And let's be those people who pursue those things while also praying that we're not put in difficult situations and those ethical quandaries and asking for the Spirit's guidance should we be in them. But hopefully you had a little fun as we discussed those things. And I want to hopefully set your conscience a little bit at ease that you can go back to playing board games and basketball and football and even giving disguising signs on the baseball field and supporting those things without being in violation of God's commands. We want to honor the Lord above all else. And this is one where I think culturally we've oversimplified and missed the actual intention here. So.
Yeah.